My name's Greg. I'm the technical, one of the technical guys here at Code for South Africa, and as Ray said, we build, we do a bunch of things. Really our goal is to drive social change through informed decision making, and we use open data and various web tools to do that. And so part of that is focusing on journalism and data journalism. So we've got some tools which I want to just whiz you through pretty quickly. Codeforsa.org is our website, and these tools are all linked from there. So we've got a little thing down here that says tools for journos. So we've got a little collection of the things here which I'm going to take you through. So I'm going to take you through Wazi Map, which is a tool for exploring census information and election information. And what's great about that is you can get really detailed information right down to the ward level, as well as municipalities and provinces and the country as a whole. Okay, so the idea behind Wazi Map is you can explore the story behind the data, and the two main data sets we have are, as I said, the census information from 2011. So while it's a couple of years out of date, it's still very indicative of the basic trends in South Africa. And it's by far the richest, most detailed sort of demographic information the country has. So you can dive into Wazi Map in two ways. You can either browse through the map and dig into a province. You can browse the whole of South Africa, or you can say, I want to use my current location. And this works well on your mobile phone as well. Actually, it's all mobile optimized, which is awesome. So if you're out in the field or you're going somewhere really interesting, I do it when I'm going on like road trips on holiday in random little towns. It's really interesting to dig into some of this data. I'm going to jump some of that stuff. You can also search for a place. You could type in like 12 Main Road, and it'll find it. What I'm going to actually search for is a place which I'll be surprised if people have heard of it. It's called Merifong City. Okay, so this is now profiling this place, Merifong City. Merifong City, and this font is really, really small.
Just Control and plus.
Control and plus. Okay, that's a bit better. Okay, so Merifong City is a municipality in Gauteng, South Africa. So you can see it here. I don't know why it's got a bit confused about the map there. So this is Benoni there. So this is Joburg. Merifong City is this area here. Those little green guys there are the wards in Merifong City. Okay. So this page is pretty, well, let me just start off here. So you can see a population, you can see we're getting the census data from 2011. We start off with some election information. I'm going to move through this fairly quickly, and I know I can lose people, so please bear with me, because there's a lot of data here. So we've got the registered number of voters, and we call them out. Sort of nice big numbers there. We've got the percentage of the people who cast their vote. If you hover over the percentage, it actually gives you the concrete number as well. And then we've got a breakdown of how people voted in this area, so ANC, DA, etc. We also, I don't know, my eyesight's not that good, but if you can read here, it gives you a comparison. So it says this is the number for Merifong City. It also says it's less than 10% of the figure in Gauteng, and it gives you a number for Gauteng. It also says, and it gives you a number for South Africa. Okay, so it's giving you context. Okay, so we're trying to give you, and what's great is that less than 10%, that gives, like, especially if you're using this for a story, it's a great sort of, it's a easily rememberable line, as opposed to saying, you know, it's 48.7% of blah, blah, blah. It gives you something relative. We've also got provincial election results there. We can then dig more, and this is where the census data comes in. We've got the median age. We've got a breakdown of the people's ages. You can see here that 68% of Merifong City are 18 to 64. It's 197,000 people. Oops. Sorry, I'm not used to this laptop. Population group, predominantly Black African. Gender breakdown, which I'll come back to in a sec, because there's some interesting stuff there. We've got the language most spoken at home. So that's not their first language, it's just the one most spoken at home. And then a breakdown, so we've got Xhosa, Setswana, Sesotho, Afrikaans, and Zulu. It's interesting, this is Gauteng, and yet the most speakers there are Xhosa speakers. Immigration statistics, like how many people were born locally. The rate in Gauteng is 88%. The rate in South Africa is 92%. So this is actually quite low. So there are actually quite a bit of immigrants here. How many are South African citizens? We also get household information. So we've got 66,000 households there. What type of house is it? Is it a house? Is it a shack? So 21% of these households here are shacks. That's really high. Who owns the households? Average household income over the year. What goods are available? So 91% of people have cell phones. 9% of people have a telephone. So sell your telecom shares because really they're not going anywhere. Water, service delivery. So how many of them have access to water? That's generally pretty good. Electricity is generally okay. Toilet facilities gets interesting. If you live in the Eastern Cape, this number is shockingly high. How many people actually have no access to any toilets whatsoever? Refuse disposal. We've got employment information. Average monthly income. Who has access to the internet? We've got education. So, okay, I'm going to move quickly here because there's a whole bunch of great information here. Okay. But
you got marriage versus single. I'm thinking particularly about going solo. So I'm talking about singledom versus.
We actually don't have that.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's in the census information. It must be. So not all census information is here. We try to choose sort of really urban influence for South Africa. There are other things there like child-headed households, which is always an interesting number. How many poor children actually are the heads of their own household? But okay, so we can see here, okay, so I'm just scrolling back up and I've just come back to sex, okay. So there are a bunch of things we can do here. So we've got some graphs and I can say for this graph, I want to see the data. And then they'll actually give you those numbers and it says, okay, for Merifong City, percentage and number, Gauteng gives you a percentage and number, and South Africa, percentage and number. So you've got some comparison there. These buttons which you can't quite see on the display, there's a table, which will actually take you to the full table for this data set, which you can then download into Excel. You can download it into Google Earth. If you know any of sort of the other stuff like GeoJSON, you can download that stuff as well. You can plot it on a map, which I'll do in a sec, and you can see a distribution. Okay. So this one's interesting because if you look at the ratio of men to women in South Africa, most places is pretty much 50-50. Right, it's generally slightly biased towards females. In this case, there are fewer females. There are only 90%. So females in Merifong City, 46% of the population are women. Okay, and that's only 90% of the rate in Gauteng and South Africa, both of which are 50%. So that might not seem like a big difference. There's only a 4% difference there. That's actually quite large if you look at the data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want to see this gender information, this gender breakdown on a map. So I click on map. Okay, so now this is what this is doing is it's showing us the population by gender, and it's showing us municipalities in Gauteng. It shows that because we're looking at a municipality in Gauteng. If we're looking at a ward, it would have shown us the wards in that municipality. Okay, so we can see here. We're showing currently the column. The table we're looking at is gender. So we can choose various columns there. We've got male and female. Makes sense. So we're looking at the percentage of the population that is women, right? On the left-hand side here, on the low number, 45%. So those two municipalities here are pretty low in terms of women.
Mining probably.
Exactly, right. So. And you can see here these are much closer to 50%, so they're pretty normal. So we've got two interesting municipalities here. So there's Merifong City. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say I want to look at the wards in Merifong City. So I'm going to say add more places and divide Merifong City into wards. And then I'm going to say, okay, I want to see wards rather than municipalities. And it zooms into Merifong City, okay? Now I'm going to switch this around and let's look at males, which will be the inverse. So right at the bottom here, we've got the pale color is 47% men. Right at the top here, the dark red is 98% men. Okay. So if you dig into some of the detail here, as you said, this is a mining city. Okay, it's a mining municipality, and so there are very few women. So in that ward here, Ward 14, it's 81% women. There's another ward here. This little guy. That is 98% men, okay? And I'm showing this example because it's quite interesting to look at a profile of a place where you live, which is great. It's fun to type in your address. But it's also interesting when you dig into the data underneath, you can start seeing these outliers. And inevitably we found when there's an outlier, which is like a value either that's really high or really low, there's an interesting story behind that. So I discovered this and I wrote a little blog post on this. So this ward here is literally a ward of maybe an acre or two on top of a hostel in a mine. Now, why that's a ward, I don't know. Why should that ward be surrounded by another ward? Why is that ward not part of this ward? What happens during elections in that ward, right? This is really interesting to me, and I'd love somebody to tell me, like, what is actually going on there.
Can you overlay maps? So if I wanted to see the density of built environment over this, could I see that?
You can't in this, but what you can do is I can go here, I can go download data, and I can put it in as KML, which you can load into Google Earth.
Yeah, right.
And then if you can get out those other data sources, you can overlay them in something like Google Earth. If you're using something like QGIS, you can also import this data into QGIS pretty easily. So we're not trying to solve all of those problems, but we're trying to open up the data so you can get hold of it and then manipulate it in other tools that you have at your disposal. Okay, so there's something pretty interesting there. Another way we can look at it, because not everybody is visual in terms of looking at maps, is we can look at the distribution of this table. And sometimes this takes us sort of a little bit of thinking, but essentially what it's showing here is we're looking at, I'm going to remove municipalities in Gauteng. We're looking at wards in Merifong City, and we're looking at each of these little dots here is a ward. So you can see here Ward 11, 32% female, and 67% male. So this shows you where the outliers are. So we got this ward down here, which is that really tiny one, that Ward 19, with 1% female, and obviously the same thing up here. I can click and it'll hold it there. 98%. So you can start seeing that distribution. If we looked at the same gender distribution across the country, it's pretty much totally sort of centered around the 50% for both things. You can look at more than just gender. We can type in a whole bunch of things here. You can start, choose a topic. I want to look at toilet facilities. And suddenly I can see, okay, who has bucket toilets, who has chemical toilets, who has flush toilets. So the worst off for bucket toilets, Ward 14, 2% bucket toilets. If we then, again, I can add more things here. I can say I want to look at Gauteng. So you can add things here. You can now pick and choose. You can now say I want to compare Gauteng with Western Cape, or I want to look at all the wards in the city of Cape Town, or I want to look at all provinces, or I just want to look at the country as a whole. So that is a very quick tour, and you can now say, well, okay, I want to take a look at Ward 9, and I can click on Ward 9, which will take me back to the profile page, which actually says, okay, here are really all the details about Ward 9. And in a few seconds that map will load. Our internet's a bit slow. And there you can see where Ward 9 is. You can also browse to the ward alongside it. You can jump to municipalities alongside it. You can zoom out here to get some further context on where you're looking at, and all of these things. You can also jump up. You can say, I just want to look at the whole of Gauteng. But yeah, so you're getting a basic idea of what this allows you to do. So if you've got a story, or suddenly there a place in the middle of nowhere comes into the news because there are service delivery protests or riots or something, we can now actually get quite a good description of what's going on there. What is the income like in that area? What is education like? Who's employed? In particular, are there immigrants in that area? Is that sort of contributing to xenophobic issues and that sort of thing?
I think also if you're going to go out to do a story or to do a report, this helps you pre-research and gives you ideas of what stuff to look for.
Yeah. And as I said, this works on your mobile phone, especially this profile page. It works really well. And if you're out there and you want to see, okay, well, what's going on where I am right now, it's very easy to go Wazi map. It's wazimap.coza. Use my location, and it'll say, well, you're in this ward, this municipality, this city, this province. Choose which level you want to look at, and you can break it down. There's another little thing which I want to show you quickly, is not only is this a research tool, it can also be used as part of your story. So let's say you now wanted to take this gender information and you wanted to embed it into a story or a piece that you're putting online. You can click embed, And it gives you a little bit of HTML. All you have to do is cut and paste that into your web page or into your article if your article allows HTML. And that will then embed that graph into the page. So we want to keep adding more data to this. This is one of our sort of primary tools. The challenge is actually that because the census data is so detailed, it's hard to take less detailed data and add it in here, right? We want to add crime statistics here. Crime statistics are at the police district level, which have no relation to electoral wards, which have no relation to municipalities, which sometimes don't even have a relation to provinces, okay? We'd love to get it in there. We want to get even more information from here, from like the stats say they put out a bunch of useful information. It's hard to get at. If we put it in something like this, it's easier for people to see it and play with it and work with it. We're working on doing that, for sure. It's technically challenging, though, but we should do it. But this is built, I always have to say this, we adapted this tool for South Africa. It's based on a tool called Census Reporter, which is built by a Knight-funded fellowship in the States for the use with the American census. And we adapted it. So they did an incredible job of making this work. And they said to us, no, it's very specific to America, you'll struggle, and I think it's come up brilliantly. So.
I think